We're live. Hello. Welcome to the live stream. It's Angry Young Men, Let's Talk. So I'm looking forward to welcoming some guests and having a chat. I'm Adam Welsh. I'll be your host for the very short future. Introducing, though, to start with, we've got Gerry Clarkson.
Thank you. Good evening. Little poem for you. Here's a couple of fun facts. Men are 3 or 4 times more likely than women to commit suicide and twice as likely to suffer from heart attacks. So let's start opening up and let's start having a conversation about that. Because our testosterone is natural, that's not what's toxic. And maybe the problem is the mindset that we've adopted, the conditioning we've accepted, where our masculinity is based upon our physical ability, upon our sporting capabilities, and upon how much we can bench press. Do we have to have well-toned biceps, well-toned triceps, well-toned lats and abs? Are we less of a man if we're a little bit skinny or if we carry a little bit too much fat or flab? And if we enjoy a friendly chat or gab with a woman and have friends of a different gender, does that make us a ladies' man, implying we have to have some other agenda? Is it not possible to just want to be friended without wanting to bend her over? Because I have daughters, a sister and a mum. And guess what? They're all women. And I respect them as human beings. And guess what? Women are human beings, they're not just conquests, and to be a man doesn't mean you have to act like some kind of fiend with your only motivation being to get into a woman's jeans. Is that what being a ladies' man means? Do real men just want to get inside a woman's pants, or are we a little bit more evolved than that? A little bit more advanced? And if that's what it takes to be a man, then what's a man's man? Is that someone who wants to get inside a man's pants? Or is it going out with the lads and drinking beer, and if your mate gets a bit emotional and wants to open up and talk about his deepest fears, you tell him to man up, stop acting like a girl and stop crying like a queer. And so he mans up and he holds back that desperate tear, and he holds back from sharing how his dark and despairing thoughts were becoming more and more severe. And then one day he explodes and he hurts someone, or he hurts himself, and then suddenly he's gone. He's no longer here. But he kept it all in and he did what he did to be a man, if that's what it takes to be a man. Because I see it as men, we can struggle to show our gentle side and show our vulnerabilities and express that basic human need for some TLC. Yet we all need some love in our lives and we all need that little bit of affection, but we're out there trying to be the one who's strong, who can stand alone, who has no need of protection, and it's reinforced in us, it's conditioned. Men don't cry. And we're not shy of stepping up to a fight, but sometimes we all get scared, and sometimes we all want to take flight, and sometimes we all need someone to hold us tight and reassure us that everything's going to be all right. Because no man is an island. We all need that someone, that family member, that lover or that friend. That's someone who we can show our weaknesses to and our vulnerabilities and be secure in expressing our insecurities, knowing that we'll be held and soothed tenderly. That need is not an indictment on our masculinity. That's not a slight on being a man, because sometimes we all want to run away to a quiet room, and sometimes we all need to be that little spoon. And I am not afraid to confess that I see people of all genders and sexual persuasions with strengths I know I don't possess, with a maturity, a confidence and courage I could never contest. But this is not my weakness. This doesn't mean my manhood should be considered something less than the average man. And that doesn't make me gay. And it doesn't mean I want to be a woman. That simply makes me human. Just one person offering one man's perspective, one man's opinion. And I can only apply my definition of being a man to self. I'm not here to force these views onto anybody else. So if you're gay, straight, bisexual, trisexual, metrosexual, conceptual, pansexual, transsexual, transgender, transfluid, transpenine, transvestite, a dominatrix, into selling tricks, a cuckold, a submissive, into water sports, dogging, pegging, swinging, or a little bit of S&M, then if it's between consenting adults, frankly, my dear, I couldn't give a damn, whatever it takes to be a man. Thank you.
Quick. Sanitize. Very good. Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. Expertly sanitized. Thank you, Alex, everyone. Alex. Without further ado, thank you, Gerry, that was fantastic. Really, really great. I'm going to introduce now some men who are going to join me on stage. Give it up for Rory Douglas-Speed, George Bukhari, Majid Mehdizadeh, Luke Jerdy, and me. Come on, put it together. There's only us here. Yeah. Welcome, guys. How's it going?
Good. That was great.
Yeah, really nice.
That was really good. Loved it.
Yeah.
And a lot to resonate with as well.
Exactly, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about why we're here. We're doing a show which is called Your Mum, which maybe Majid can tell us a little bit more about the title in a short while. Yeah, go for it. What is Your Mum?
So Your Mum is, it stands for Young Man's Angry Movements. And it's a bit of a play on words with, like, you know, when we were at school as kids and everyone used to insult each other by saying, oh, and your mum. So it's a bit of a play on words like that. As in part of the show, I go back to my school years. So that's the title.
And what was the inspiration behind the project and how did it come about?
Gosh, basically, I kind of first had the idea a few years ago. It's probably about 3 years in the making now, 18, 19, yeah. I kind of went on a deeply personal journey from being quite an angry young man to somebody resembling peace, a much more peaceful person, due to kind of a series of things that happened throughout my life, which I kind of went right the way back to discover what the root cause of it was, and once I discovered what the root cause was, I was then able to kind of tackle it head on, and it was a long journey that's obviously still ongoing because we all have anger and experience it, you know, quite often, unless you're, you know, a Tibetan monk. I'd imagine they probably don't experience too much anger. That's the goal.
It takes work, though.
It does. It takes work. It's a complicated, messy process that's ongoing. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
And at what point did you think, okay, this will make a great solo show? And you know, what is that process like for you, putting your real life experience on stage?
I think it came from, I don't actually know, like, I don't think I can pinpoint the exact moment where I thought this would make a good show, but I remember coming back to my house and speaking to Daisy, my fiance, in the kitchen, and saying, I think I might, like, make this into a show and maybe make it into, like, and use language and rhyme and spoken word and basically address the journey that I've been on and put it on stage to help others.
Fantastic.
And Daisy was like, yeah, do it.
Great. Well, we're gonna see a short extract from Your Mum at the end of today's chat, but I'll introduce you to Rory, who is, you might know from Hollyoaks, an actor. That's how you would define yourself, an actor?
I usually say bartender.
Bartender.
Yeah. I get funny about saying actor. I don't know why. I get a bit embarrassed.
Yeah, I think that's quite common. Yeah. And George Bukhari, another, would you say, actor?
No, just again another bartender.
Bartender.
Right. George calls himself a drama actor.
Oh, drama actor. Yeah.
Just getting the digs in there straight away.
I don't do soaps.
Nothing wrong with soaps. Nothing wrong
write
with
me
soaps.
off. I'm always open.
Yeah, you don't do soaps, but you're filming Corrie at the moment.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Okay.
Pandemic just happened.
Fantastic. Well, so in terms of the sort of main theme of the evening, which I guess is anger, do you guys have any, just to open it up and say if you guys have any experience of anger personally, or?
Yeah, I definitely would. Like, I seeing Majid's show as well, as much as I was there on those events when some of them he describes.
So you're friends and you're described in the show.
George is my best man.
I'm his best man as well. Yeah. But I witnessed a lot of those events, so for me it was very truthful when watching it, and I relived the trauma of it, you know.
Right.
But then I resonate with the same trauma that he's gone through as a young person. I think I did. You know, his was triggered for a different reason, which you'll have to watch the show to find out.
Thank you.
You know, but mine was the death of my dad at the age of 8, and being a young person having to deal with that, and you know. I was perceived as a very young man, you know, given up at school, given up by any type of youth club because I didn't know how to channel it. And again, I was from a background where I couldn't go home and cry and let it out or take, you know, be sensitive, you know. So my anger got channeled into, you know, things that I shouldn't have got involved in as a young man.
Do you mind sharing more about what that's?
Yeah, I just think I was, you know, it was exploited a little bit, you know, and I got involved with the wrong people. And, you know, and as Majid knows, you know, the turning point for me, the event was when I was 17 and robbed at gunpoint, you know, and held a hostage, you know, and beaten up, and that was when I was when it all let go. Do you know what I mean?
In terms of letting go of...
That's when I let my anger go. And, you know, I think it was like a kettle, and it was boiling and boiling, and you know, then that event, I was allowed then to be a sensitive. I had to get to that extreme, you know?
That's really interesting, because I would have thought that an event like that would make you... I suppose it would make you scared at first, but then it would make you more angry because you want to protect yourself. Because I know... I mean... You certainly didn't get rid of your anger at 17, did you?
No. It was me
But you
realising
feel like it was a turning point?
Yeah, it was me, the turning point where I thought, I've got to stop now. I know,
I see, yeah.
In my 20s I dealt with my anger through therapy and, you know, etc. And, you know, there's lots... I am a very anxious person now. I've got an extreme paranoia, you know, from that event. And paranoia, again, makes you angry and it makes you very self-conscious. Majid will know, I can't go to a party without asking who's going to be there, who might come. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm always on fight or flight.
Understandable after
You
an
know,
experience like that.
But it was anger what got me there, Rory, because I couldn't deal with the death of my dad and having to deal with, you know, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old wanting to be a man, in brackets. Like, what is a man? You know, what is a man?
Yeah.
And I was brought up in a very heavily cultured environment where men had to be strong, and a neighbourhood where you couldn't be weak. You know,
Whereabouts was that?
I grew up in Burnage, Moss Side, which predominantly is a heavily gang-affiliated area and underprivileged. You know, and a lot of my friends whom Majid met at drama school, you couldn't be perceived as a weak man in front of them, and that ultimately led to me into that horrifying event. What happened?
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's incredible and shocking to hear. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here to tell the tale.
But my question is, which resonate with that poem, is what is a man?
Yeah. Well, it's the question, I
Yeah.
guess. What is a man?
That's just dawned on me now, actually.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Rory,
absolutely.
any ideas what a man is?
Well, certainly not me. Like you say, that poem was really interesting, and I've just taken obviously from George's experience. Mine's completely different. Nothing to the extremities of that at all. But as a young man or a boy growing up, I had anger. Again, it stems from, you can point in any direction. My parents got divorced. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. There was probably anger there that was just under the surface that I didn't quite know about, and it was about finding that. And I had lots of experiences when I was younger. I just used to like fly off the handle. I mean, you could ask my mum, she's the one that knows best. I used to get really quite aggy. And you know, as that goes through school, you get older, you end up getting into fights, and it seems to be the standard thing. It's like a coming of age thing where you just go out and fight. And I don't know what it's like down south, but in Scotland, the underage drinking thing is quite intense, and that's what it was about. You go out Friday, Saturday nights, get drunk, quite young, and fight each other.
Yeah.
Have a square go.
A square goal. Exactly that. And you go, wow, you get to an age like now, I mean, I'm well and truly over that.
I mean, we're not saying by any means, are we, that like it's just men that get angry.
No.
It's, you know, but I guess we are. You know, we're asking the question like, where does male anger come from, and why does it recur so often, and why does it, you know, lead us into situations that compromise our lives?
It's quite animalistic, isn't it?
It is
if you
very
think
animalistic,
about it,
yeah.
like if you can pull, I reckon you could pull any, you know, man or woman aside, really, and if they say why are you angry at that situation, or if you can dig back into your past, why are you angry, they'll have something in there that goes, that's what's leading me down that path. And I don't know if we use that as an excuse. I don't know if it's legitimate to use anything as an excuse, and sometimes you just need to let it fizzle out But I think that happens at different times for different people.
Because you were saying outside, Rory, that it's funny because you don't really get angry now, and
No, talking to Tibetan monks, man.
He
Honestly.
he never ever gets angry. So I was like, I was interested as well to hear Rory's, because I didn't know that you. I think you maybe told me that you were quite angry as a young man, but I was kind of interested in hearing your stories about other people and like if you'd been a victim of other male anger as well. But it's interesting to hear that you had the same kind of things and got into
Well, do you know
fights.
what? Yeah, you're saying that back to me. That it's funny. I found myself caught up in situations. It was never really because I was angry at any given opportunity. I was in a group of people that seemed to be angry. So I thought, yeah, get the pitchforks. I'm angry too. And I was like, I realised this was silly. And I think I was saying I had a story outside where we went out one night and we must have been about 14 or something. And there was a massive group of us, and there was a big young team coming through from another town. They came through, and there was this big brawl in the middle of the street, Cooper High Street. And, there must be about 20 of us there. We start fighting, and me and this guy start going for each other. And this gives me anxiety thinking about it. Oh, God, being in a fight. Oh. And then the police come bounding around the corner, vans and cars and all sorts. So we all get off. Because it was my hometown, I knew where to go. So I said to the guy I was actually fighting with, come this way, I'll sort you out. Ran down a wee alleyway, got off, and we ran for about 5 minutes. We managed to get away, and we just start laughing, going, what the hell were we playing at? And it was the most ludicrous experience, But it's something, I think that was my coming of age. That was my, what's the point? Like, I get involved with this horrible thing that people go out and fight. I'm not angry. And I think that's when I sort of stopped going, do you know what, there's you can be a peacemaker at these points, so I'm not too sure.
So for you, it was more of like a fitting in with other lads, almost pretending you were angry at times, just to fit in.
100%, which sounds...
That's so interesting.
Yeah, exactly, and I think you could put 200 young men in a room, and probably more than half will go, I'm in a bit of that situation. You've got to stick up for your boys, you've got to do this, and that scene is like a really masculine and getting that animal wolf pack kind of thing to do, stick up for the team. But you find yourself in situations, and there's some horrible and tragic stories where some people don't get off as lucky as just going into a fight, so.
And you put those 200 people in a room and they'll rank themselves from 1 to 200 who's the hardest. It's instilled in school.
Yeah.
Remember at the cock of the year?
Oh, it was always that at school. Yeah,
But
it was like, who's the hardest? Who's the second hardest?
And people didn't even need to fight and they'd get ranked.
No.
But like, that is still instilled in us as adults, because you walk into a bar, and I love watching people walk into a bar or pub because they're already sizing everybody up.
Pigeon-chested.
Pigeon-chested. And the most fights are caused by someone staring at someone, and then it becomes that animalistic thing of...
yeah.
Yeah,
Silly,
yeah.
innit?
I mean,
And then it's the person who looks down, or it goes outside and there's a fight.
Yeah, I wonder how many fights have been started with, what are you looking at?
Yeah, what are you
Exactly.
looking at?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean? Like, it's, yeah.
I mean, I was always the
I've-
softest. Like, if you're talking about that, that hierarchy, and that the exact situation happens to me, probably every couple of weeks, where I like to dance, like at under 18s discos. I like to go for it, and I think in a way I got a lot of attention like that, which I think other men didn't like. And you could almost predict that after the disco, after the whatever, there'd be lads that followed me, and I remember the exact words is like, "You've been looking at me all night," and it was the first time I'd seen the person. But I think it was like, and so what? Maybe you're a good-looking guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, but I think it's an odd.
Or traffic lights is the one where I most get it, because I love cars. What are you looking at, mate? Oh, I'm just appreciating your car. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they've got nowhere to go, but they're still wanting.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah,
But it's
like-
always on the defensive. It's always like, what are you looking at? It's like, well, maybe let's...
But it's instilled in us. It's society what has instilled that archetype of the male,
Yeah.
True.
and it's done from school.
So it's 2021. Like, what a man is like blown out of the water. Like, we in terms of gender, and but in terms of those roles, it feels like we're still very much stuck in the past. So how do we break from, follow, the cycle of?
Talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's starting. I think for Majid doing this show, for me that's like Majid doing therapy. because he's exposing himself and telling his story about what happened. I was educated watching the show because I thought, that makes sense. That makes sense. It was like a solo story of his life. And I think the more therapy becomes acceptable in young men, you know, the better it is in the long run. You know, they'll be able to deal with trauma, what's happened, and which might make their anger resilience level go, you know, bigger or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
And when you say therapy, are you talking about like talking therapy, or are you talking more broadly like writing a show, or, you know,
Anything what suits that individual. I think it has to be bespoke. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
To what that person needs.
yeah. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Like going for therapy is like sort of a taboo, weirdly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. I think particularly like as, you know, predominantly left-leaning artists, it's very easy to get to be in a bubble of, well, a lot of the men that I know and hang around with all kind of think the same as me, so we're kind of already, then they all think that therapy and things like that is okay, but actually that's not true at all. Like my mates from back home in Derby definitely wouldn't say that therapy was, they wouldn't have that old school view anymore, but it would still be like, you know, they're different from kind of others that, and I think a lot of like working class men in regional towns are kind of brought up with older kind of views, and I think it's easy to get into that mindset of it's easy to fall into a bubble. Happens every time there's an election. You think you're in this bubble, and on social media you think, well, everyone's voting the same as me, because everyone on my social, I only follow, you know, 500 people. There's 70 million in the UK.
It's like a friend of ours. It's really interesting you're talking about that, like what bubble you're in, and going down the male mental health route is, you know, Alfie Madge, and you know he's sort of wears his heart on his sleeve in the sense that he can speak and talk about anything, and he's got 3 or 4 brothers, and he says every time I go home and I try to talk to one of them or get them to talk to me about something, they say they literally just don't have the program to do it, and they just don't have the words or the mentality to speak about it. And I think that's what's interesting. I think that's why it's important doing little things like this, because the wider that narrative spreads, the more people can be enveloped in it. So, and it's a lot more difficult to do. It's not as easy as it sounds, because it depends what bubble you're living in. But I think the more we can do things like this, and the more people can see a show like yours, or have, you know, the confidence to write something like you're putting on, which is incredible, by the way. This is not an advert. It really is.
Thank you.
It really drives in that demographic to watch the show, or you know, we can learn something here. And like George was saying, I don't think it matters where you come from in the social spectrum, but you can pull something away from the show because you've seen it, or you've experienced it, or you've been a part of it. So
I'm really interested in this idea of, you know, not being able to talk, not having the programming to do it, and that in a way being the solution to, you know, male anger issues or issues with masculinity. How do you encourage people to talk when they don't feel they've got the words? That's my...
Well, I think it has to start with parents. Has to start with, as soon as you have a baby, and I've got a baby on the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. You know, you've got a son, Adam, Rory, you've got a son. I think
matching bags under the eyes as well, mate. Well,
I think it has to start there. Like, yeah, I'm certainly not dismissing all the men that are currently alive now, but if you're going to be a dad and you're going to take on that responsibility, and a mum as well, mum's obviously, you know, just not if not even more important. You know, it's you have to start. Always go to, and I'm not a parent yet, so I can't say that I'm an expert, but I wish that I'd have had more of, are you okay? Are you okay? What's going on? Are you okay? Not, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. You're grounded, grounded. Why have you done that? Why have you got into a fight? Why have you done that to that kid? You're a bully. Go to your room. You're grounded. Ask me why I'm all right, why I'm not okay.
I think that's right, and I think what I've sort of certainly tried to do and not always, you know, succeeded is to, if I see my son experiencing an emotion that's maybe problematic, rather than sort of trying to shut it down or ignore it, is to try and sort of give him a word for it, and to be like, okay, this is from Philippa Perry's book, by the way, which is excellent, which is Things You Wish Your the book You Wish Your Parents
Oh yes,
had read.
Daisy's reading that now.
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
really good, but she says, you know, if your child experiences an emotion, is to say what it is. It looks like you're angry. And I think if the child learns to be able to say, I feel angry, then at least, you know, that's
powerful and simple.
well, yeah, that's the that's the outlet. That's the, you know, the ability to articulate that I think we all struggle with.
That's it. And what's more important than your kids, you know? And there might be situations in your life that you can't control. You know, like my parents split up when I was 12, which was a big factor. Rory's parents, he spoke about his parents splitting up. Obviously, George lost his dad. Your parents have recently split up.
Yeah.
That's all of us left without a you know, traditional family unit, which of course non-traditional family units can work absolutely, and they do all the time.
But it has an impact.
But it has an impact, and then if you can't control that as a parent, then you have to nurture your child through that after the event. You know, it's not about going, well, I have to stay with my partner no matter what happens. It's ridiculous. But if you split up or something like that happens, you've got to ask your son and your daughter if they're okay, because otherwise, later on in life, it's really going to come back and bite them if they don't deal with it. So I think, yeah, talking is massive, isn't it? Really.
Definitely.
I mean, I remember when I remember at school, and I mean there was a fight that I had after school, which the teachers didn't deal with properly beforehand because they knew it was going to happen, and because I told them that it wasn't going to happen, they just kind of left it. It was really, I think they probably should have gone, no, you're staying in after school, you've got a detention, you're not going for this fight, and the other guy that's having the fight with you, he's got a detention as well, you're going to have to sit in and talk it out. On another occasion, there was a lad that was supposedly after me. There was always this phrase of, oh, so-and-so's after you. And so much of my childhood was, this other person's after you. So much of my childhood was fear.
Horrible thing. That,
It makes me anxious thinking about it now.
Yeah, it does. It's funny.
So much of that was just fear because someone was after me. And actually I went to the teacher and told them and said, can you get us both in a room together? So they did that. Instead of telling him off or anything, they got us both into a room together. And so I was just able to say to him, look, mate, I'm really sorry. I haven't meant to upset you, blah, 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 blah. And he was absolutely fine. We shook hands. And that was it. So I left the room relieved. But I had to do that. It's not necessarily the teacher's responsibility, but teachers do have a big responsibility as well in that.
Good, yeah. So parents, we cover that responsibility to educate and to nurture. Teachers, educators. There's charities as well, isn't there? And we're going to chat a little bit about CGL, who you've done some work with, Majid. And I think we're going to see a short video in a moment. But Majid, do you want to just tell us about CGL and what they're doing? Yeah, so a charity called Change, Grow, Live, and they're a nationwide charity, and they work with adults and young people as well, quite often with drug and alcohol problems, which is of course also quite often linked to anger. And I reached out to them when I initially had the idea for the show, and they were really up for supporting it. And as part of the process, I've led workshops with some of the young people that they work with, and had chats with them. And actually, we've got a young person that CGL worked with, who's going to be in rehearsal with us next week, which is a brilliant thing to offer. He wants to pursue a career in theatre and the arts, and to be able to offer that's amazing. And the work that they do is just basically like a counselling service, and they counsel young people through either drug and alcohol problems or anger problems, and just try and help them basically. They're called Change, Grow, Live.
Change, Grow, Live. Yeah, they're a really, really wonderful charity, and and kind of deserve a bit more support and recognition, I think, than not many people have heard of them.
Fantastic. Well, shall we see that video and just check that out? It's about 10 minutes long. And
yeah, it was a chat that I had with Derek, who works with the young people at Change, Grow, Live.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much.
Just tell me a little bit about the work that you do with young people for CGL, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I work with I'm the youth offending team lead, and I'm the pupil referral unit lead. Now, the youth offending team is the criminal justice system for children under 18, and the pupil referral unit is a school for kids with behavioural issues, mental health needs, and that type of thing. So I'm primarily a drugs and alcohol worker, but when you're working with young people, you need to be everything. You need to be a drugs worker, a teacher, a big brother, a friend. Do you know what I mean? You need to be very, very adaptable when working with youngsters. So it's like I said, it's primarily drugs and alcohol, though we can help them with mental health. Obviously, we're not mental health workers, but we can signpost them in the right direction, emotional health, education, training and employment, reduce offending, and obviously trying to get them to stop using drugs as much as possible.
Yeah. So is that, would you say that's the main, if you had a main aim to achieve when you get a pupil referred, or whether you whoever you're working with, what would that main aim be? To get them off drugs and alcohol?
Right. So we walk a line with we obviously want the best for the kids, but we obviously we need to bear in mind the fact that they are kids. They're at an experimentation age. So working with kids that are smoking cannabis, drinking alcohol and things like that, like this is the age that primarily, like a lot of people do it. A lot of people, like this is the age for making mistakes. So I don't sensationalize it. Like a young person that's been smoking cannabis for 2 years and I try and go into there and start with the scare tactics, it doesn't work. Like they're already like immune to that kind of thing. So the next best thing for me is productivity over everything. So if they're going to school, if they're not going to school, right, let's try and get them back in school, because while they're in school, they're not offending or like doing anything on the streets. They're not smoking while they're at school. So that takes up a lot of their time. And once I've got them at the school, for instance, the other day I was at the school and there was this young girl, she was getting wound up from some boy, and she come in the school, very angry, she was crying, and she punched the wall. She made a big hole in the wall. Now that was a very negative situation. She's been very aggressive to the wall, but the way she punched, she swung her hip perfectly. Like she punched properly. So when I spoke to her, obviously I didn't condone how she done it, but what I do is first, when dealing with someone that's like angry, I'm not going to go after the reaction first and foremost. First, I need to find some justification in their anger. Then we deal with the reaction afterwards. So this particular young lady that I'm working with, I kind of like, I bigged her up a little bit. Like I says, like the way you punch, you swung that nice, like it's a proper punch. Like I'm not condoning what you've done, but there's a positive in there somewhere. And now I've managed to talk her into going to a boxing gym that's 5 minutes from her house.
Right. Okay.
So,
yeah.
And then what I do then is because obviously like with girls, like they like to do things together to feel a little bit more confident and a little bit more safe. So I've got a good relationship with one of her friends, and I've talked her into going to the boxing club as well. So they can go there as like together, and they can they bounce off each other. They're brilliant young girls, really, really nice young girls. They really are. And so they'll be going to boxing as of next week, I believe. I just got to make a couple of phone calls and it's done.
That's great. And I think I really like what you're saying about finding the justification to the anger first, rather than just going, no, that's wrong, you can't do that, which we know now never works. I don't know if you agree, but I think it never works just to tell people, no, you're in the wrong. You have to ask them if they're okay, and you have to, only from my own personal experience, you've obviously got so much more experience than I have, but just from personal experience, like just wanted people to, because I was a very, very angry young lad. I just wanted someone to ask me if I'm all right. Like you say, something like that would have been great. And do you think finding an outlet for anger is important, such as boxing?
Right. Okay. So that's the outlet, but then you've got to go to the cause as well.
Yes.
Because if that cause is still there, we need to work on that. And that can come from a myriad of things. It could be the police, it could be family at home, it could be opportunities that they're not getting. Like a lot of the youngsters I work with, like they're young men. Young men will always be hungry and ambitious. And if they can't get it the right way, they will get it the wrong way. That's just a fact.
How many young lads, in terms of the ones you work with, how many of those, if we're talking about getting down to a root cause. So when I first started tackling my anger, the most important thing for me was getting to the root of it. And once I got to the root cause of it, which is something that happened to me when I was like 11, 12 years old. Once I accepted that and realized actually it's not my fault that I'm like this, it's because of this happening and this happening, this happening, this happening. Then I was able to kind of start to relax and go, right, okay, so it's all because of that. I've been protecting myself ever since that. How, first of all, I suppose, do you get, this is, sorry, it's such a long question, but first of all, do you get, how important is it to get to that root cause, and how much of that root cause is to do with fathers?
So we've had young people that have come over from war-torn countries. Now, they've seen horrific things in front of their own eyes, really serious, horrific things. Like, the trauma is unbelievable. Now, they come over to the Western civilized world, as they say, and to go to school and to see almost be like that normal way of life whilst carrying that in their head. Okay, like that creates so much anger. Do you know what I mean? So when I get them kind of kids, I'll always look for that positive male role model somewhere. Where is he? Like, is it your mum's brother? Is it your shopkeeper? I don't care who it is. You know what I mean? So, and I will always offer myself to be that person. At first, they're a bit like, yeah, whatever. But 3-4 sessions down the line, they're ringing me like, oh yeah, my mum this, my mom, my girlfriend, or one of my boys, because they can't talk to one of their friends because their friend's going to think they're a bit of an idiot. You know what I mean? So with the fathers not being around, or even worse still, like, fathers been around for most of the time and then they go, like, a lot of sons, like, they idolize their father.
Absolutely, I did.
Idolize them.
Yeah.
And then for them to go, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. But then eventually, once, like, when they're up to the age of 18, it's almost an excuse. But once they turn 18, it's a reason. It's no longer an excuse. So I think, like, them kind of preceding years of 18, so 15, 16, 17, that's where we come in. That's where we've got to help them manage it. Because the minute they turn 18, it's no longer an excuse. So, yeah.
And why do you think that cycle has been repeated and repeated and repeated throughout the years in terms of men? Because it's more often than not, isn't it? The fathers deserting the kids than the mums. Yeah. How do we? Why does that cycle keep repeating? And how do we stop that cycle with our young men of today's society?
Learned behavior. It's learned behavior. So we've got to try to make them unlearn that is hard. It's very, very hard. Do you mind if I just say a few things before I go?
100%, please.
Organizationally, so I'm going to try not to sound too, like, scripted here.
No, fire away, mate. Fire away.
Okay, so Change Grow Live is a health and social care charity providing drug and alcohol treatment across England and Scotland and Wales. Now, we have adult services, we have young people services. At Change Grow Live, like, we believe in people. So one thing that acts as a foundation for all our work. Like, we believe everyone can make a positive change in their life with the right support. So, like, coming to children and young people, and they're affected by drugs and that, there's different ways that they're affected. Some children are using drugs, whereas some are surrounded by drug use in the family home. So both of them can have a very detrimental effect on their development. So we just want to help whichever way young people are affected: mental health, education, training, employment, emotional health, sexual health, all of that. Like, we go into the schools, we go into the youth offending team, the pupil referral units, mental health wards. That's what we do. So we can, young people can access Change Grow Live services, like, at any time. Like, just look in your local area. Even if it's not CGL, it will be a drugs and alcohol treatment in the area. The Change Grow Live website is www.changegrowlive.org, and we do have social media channels as well. We operate at CGL as a comprehensive outreach program with street outreach, home visits, as well as reaching out to young people in high risk areas. We will go to them. We are primarily outreach. They're children, so we will go to them if we have to. And that's what we're about. So it doesn't matter. I like to think, yes, I'm a drugs and alcohol worker, but I think of myself as a young people support worker. So even if they're not using drugs, if I can help them in any way, shape or form, like I'm there. All they got to do is pick up a phone or ask someone to refer them.
Thanks very much. That was great. So I just wanted to pick up the chat on really interested in this idea of the role of men. Simply because I think personally I struggle to know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know there's all these sort of like, you know, I should wear blue clothes and I should, you know, drink a full pint and not half. And like, I know all of those sort of like things, but like I just became a dad and I really found, well, about 2 years ago now, I found it difficult to know like what my role was, like, because obviously my wife gave birth to the child. I mean, how did you find that process, and how did you find settling into your role as a dad?
Still no idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely no idea. No, it's funny. It's brought out different sides of my personality, because that deep care and protection for somebody really comes over. And what will be really difficult, I'd imagine, you know, we're talking about having the right network around you and getting those emotions, teaching your child what the emotions are. If my child goes to school, if Reggie goes to school and somebody hits him, that's going to make me angry. And I need to be of a mind to say, like, well, don't hit him back harder, or do you know what I mean? It's just like you need to channel this now and not push on him. Well, you need to stand up for yourself. You need to do this, because that's where it stems from, I think. And that's going to be difficult going forwards when he gets older, not to get too sort of caught up in that emotion as well, because you feel hurt for him getting hurt. And I think that'll be quite a...
I think that's a
tough
really
thing.
tricky one, isn't it, to
Really
actually
tough.
navigate, particularly if you've got a son. Because I was talking to somebody the other day who's having a baby, and he was saying, you can't let your son be picked on. I'll have to teach him a bit of boxing, and I'll have to teach him that if anybody starts on him, he'll have to do this. And I was thinking, I'm not sure that's the best way. Maybe, you know, martial arts, self-defense, where you're channeling something, or I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Like, what do you?
A brilliant moral compass. Like, I know Nadine's little brother. He's only about 14. I say little. He's about 6'4", right? So who'd pick on him? I've no idea. But he's so good, because he got into a bit of bother actually not so long ago at school. You know, classic, exactly the stuff we're talking about still very much happens. And he got into a bit of bother, and the guy tried to hit him, and he just stood back and he went, I'll let you away with that one, I'll get off. He started walking off, and the guy's like, oh, you're this, and calling him all the derogatory names under the sun, you weakling, and all the rest of it, and went for him again. And then Jack stood up for himself and handled himself really pretty well, but he had to really be pushed for that. And I hope that remains with him, that it was ultimately self-defense. And he was angry because the guy didn't listen, but I think that's probably the only way it's right for you to stand up to yourself. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's one of those.
And what about you, Majid? Because you're about to be a father, and you know, what's your perceived idea of like what your role is as a dad, and you know, how are you rehearsing for that role?
I think just to love, like, as much as I possibly can, which will just come. I just know that it will just come so naturally. And I think for me, because I've not had any kind of relationship with my dad at all, we still talk now and again. I had a fascinating conversation with him actually, like just the other night, and I think I probably rang him just because of the work we were doing in the rehearsal room, and I hadn't actually told him that we were pregnant. And obviously Daisy's like 19 weeks now, and there was a kind of anxiety there of like, well, I need to tell him, but we haven't really spoken on the phone properly for 6 months. And we probably haven't got time to properly go into the conversation that I had with him, but he's fascinating because he always says all the right things, but then never backs it up with any action. So he'll always say, if I say, "Oh, you haven't done this, you haven't done that," he'll always go, I know, you're right. I don't know why I do it, but you're absolutely right, and I love you, and I miss you, and he says all of these things, and he's like, you might not believe me, but I think about you and your sisters every day. I'm like, of course I don't believe you. The last time I texted you, you didn't text back. I asked what lockdown was like for you, and you didn't text back. So it's like, for me, I just think it's going to be so easy to not repeat his mistakes. And I know all the love that I've got for most people in the world now. The love that I'm going to have for my son or daughter is just going to be like beyond compare.
Yeah,
It is.
I think it's
Yeah.
that's amazing, and I think what's difficult is that, like, because my dad is still around, and we're very close now. But when I was young, we had a very complicated relationship, and very, very tense relationship. And what I've struggled with in the first couple of years of being a dad is that I don't feel I have any solid role models to draw on, or any, not just within my family, but like in culture. I don't know, and I wonder if part of the problem is that dads don't know how to be dads.
Yeah, it's basically a big guide of what not to do, isn't it? That's what it feels
Yeah,
like sometimes.
yeah,
Like, what did I not like? So I'm not going to do that.
It's what I'm not going to do.
Yeah, and it's funny.
Yeah. I wondered about, your relationships. Frank was asking a question, how does anger impact your relationships? Not just, romantic relationships, but friendships. Anyone got any ideas on that?
I think the people who are closest to you get the full brunt of it. Where people might perceive it the other way around, like the guys in the bar. But when I was at my angriest, I've hurt, some of the people the most close to me. Do you know what I mean? Drama school was a perfect example of, when I was still battling a lot of stuff. And, Majid got the brunt of it. And I got the brunt of his anger.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've seen that as well,
You can imagine us
yeah.
two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I remember, not to go away from what you're saying, George, because you're absolutely right, but I remember, like with you as well, I remember a night where I had to come in and I'd like had a go at you, and then woke up the next day and just not remembered it, and you were like, you came in and like told me to fuck off, or I can't remember what I said.
No, there were a few moments like that.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, George, go on.
Yeah, no, just like that. I think about my mum, and how our relationship when I was younger, she was trying her best to support me, and I just wasn't interested. And just gave her a load of shite, really. I think that's why I'm so close with her now. Like she lives with me now. Do you know what I mean? I care for her. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like that's me sort of repenting for my anger, what I projected onto her as a young'un.
I think as well, like if you've got to talk about relationships, I think if you've got a friend that is angry, but most of the time they're great, life and soul. I would say, for me, when I was angry, it wasn't like, oh my God, he's horrendous, we can't be around him. I say it quite a few times in the show. I said, well, I've still got loads of friends. Why do I need to change? I've got loads of mates. And actually, I think if you've got a friend who is like that, and you can see that they're struggling with it, and they do get in trouble, and you do feel a bit on edge around them. I know Rory's almost certainly felt it around me at social occasions, like watching out for kind of, is he all right today, or is he going to spill over into something? And I think if you've got a friend like that, or you're in a relationship like that, talk to them and say, look, I can see that you're angry, mate. Like, do you think you should probably deal with this? Because most of the time they'll soften and go, yeah, you know what, mate, you're right, I do feel it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have attention deficit disorder, and it's very common, and it was only diagnosed last year because of lockdown. But one symptom, or one thing that manifests, is impulse control, which on the one hand, on a night out, is great because it means that the endless possibilities, but it also means I end up getting myself into sticky situations very, very easily. And I think in terms of anger and dealing with anger, I think neurology is another thing. It's like, it's not just gender. That's it's like it's the way our brains in some cases are wired.
Hormonal almost, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's like, Nadine will laugh at me for saying this, but as soon as my blood glucose goes higher, I get irritable. So our go-to is your blood high? Is your blood high? I'm like, for God's sake. I'll check it, it's about 18. I'm going, oh, okay, you win. I get quite volatile, and it's all hormone-based. It's all hormone-based.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We are swiftly running out of time, but I wondered if we just have a closing thought about like how you deal with anger in your daily life. Like, if you see the red mist descending, like, what do you do? And do you give way to it, or how do you get out of it?
Do you know, it sounds daft, but I really have it now. And in fact, I want to say I don't really have it at all. I don't get that red mist anymore, and it sounds ridiculous. But I feel so relaxed now, and I don't know why that is. I don't even think it's just because I've become a dad. It's just I've been like that for a number of years now.
Is it because you're no longer in that social group?
No, it's not even that. I've found myself in situations, but I'd much rather resolve an issue than cause an issue. And again, it's that thing about the justice side of it. If it's a massive injustice, I'll get angry.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
So anger can be channeled positively.
Completely.
Yeah. George?
I'd agree with Rory. Yeah, I think it's about how you channel it and breaking it down and understanding why you're angry.
Amazing. How do you do that?
Well, through art. That's my therapy. You know, I was saying to the boys before, you know, when I was, you know, with a friend who got robbed and we were held at gunpoint. And at that time, that was where my anger could have really lost my life, because it was either fight or flight. And at the time, I was ready for a fight, you know, but luckily that didn't happen. And then I went into drama therapy. And that was the only place I felt not judged, and I could speak about emotions and it being acceptable because we were in this artistic environment. So I went to drama school, and, you know, I think surrounding yourself around beautiful people who you can talk to. Majid, for instance, we were talking about Majid before. I've seen a change in Majid. I've known Majid for what, 15 years?
Yeah, must be something like that.
I've seen him evolve. You know, I can sit with Majid in a coffee shop and go, oh God, I feel anxious. Now, 10 years ago, I'd never even had that conversation with Majid. And he probably wouldn't have had that conversation with me. Great. So I just think having a platform where you can express yourself, I think that's massive.
Do you know, that's it. You just said fight or flight, and that's what everyone says, fight or flight. Yeah. And fight for strength, flight for weakness. It's more about, like, fight or chat. Like,
fight or chat.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fight
Flight
or communicate.
is
It sounds ridiculous again, but
flight or chat.
Fight or chat.
Flight or chat, man.
Get out of the way, talk about it.
Change the phrase.
100%. You heard it here live.
You heard it here
Hashtag
first.
fight or chat.
Yeah, it's flight or chat. There's no fighting.
The Liverpool Everyman should sponsor that.
Fight or chat.
Fight or chat. Oh my God.
Majid, I guess we're going to get your answer now in the performance.
Yeah, I was going to say, I exercise it now in a safe space, in a safe way.
Without further ado, let's prepare the way for you to give us a little extract of your mum, and
let's do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Rory and George.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate it. And Adam, of course, I don't think we've actually said, is the director of your man.
Don't tell anyone. Okay, great.
So can I just take it off the stand? Great. You ready, Dad?
Yeah.
Great. So, I pledge to never hang around with people who can't stick up for themselves. When I fall in love. I'm on a pub golf night out for my girlfriend's birthday in Derby. I've been blistering through life since Malia, gaining a set of new friends at drama school in Manchester. I'm cutthroat, I'm no nonsense. Keep up or a plan to test you will quickly form in my mind. A plan to make you feel small, with the verbs and adjectives and nouns timed when other people are around. I'm sensitive to jibes and jokes that are bound to be just that, taken that way. Except, I'm still trying to protect myself since that day. On the park, the fight.
Or was it earlier? We've all had lots of drinks. That's how it mostly starts. You know, the worst stuff anyway. We're in a club. A few of the other lads have been chucked out. I leave too to discover a fight breaking out. And it starts in my gut. A tar of racing substance is black and thick at first, swishing. A custard fizzes up so fast to my chest. My heart swirling, fully whirling round the beat it darts, starts filling up my body. This black toxic liquid pumping like the Voddy Red Bulls, added to the pints of slime. It reaches my windpipe, it whooshes, defies regular time. It's pumping round my face, in my jaw and my... A tear in the fabric of the squishy thing inside my skull. The black penetrates and changes my thinking to null. It's the liquid that makes the decision. Completely takes over my field of vision. I zero in for a full-blown collision. My whole being is feral. I'm pumping with derision. From my feet to my legs to my waist to my torso, right up from my arms to my fists. There's no preparation or direction when I'm at the edge of this cliff. There's been no build up to this. And I'm running towards these kids. And I'm pulling back my arm to swing I won't miss. I've been triggered. He can't see me, because I'm going to swing my arm the hardest I've ever swung and smack him straight in the side of his head from behind. Bloody red murder on my mind. I can see his eyes. His eyes close before he hits the floor. His body's limp before he hits the floor. I've knocked him out from one punch that loads of people saw. But I'm moving.
Thank you, Majid. That was amazing. And yeah, just to say, Majid does actually dance like that. It is, you know, it's a sight to behold. But yeah, we're really excited about your mum, which I believe opens when, Alex? 16th of June. It runs for 2 weeks, and you can get tickets on the Everyman's website. We'd love to see you there. And yeah, keep talking. And thanks very much. Thanks, guys. All right.